Hey, good morning from the Front Porch, and I'll tell you what, we have an awesome guest this week. It's Dave DeMarco. Hey, Dave, what's up?
Hello.
All right.
Nice to be here.
And you know, Dave has a special place for me in my life, and it was really weird, man, because the first time I saw you, we really kind of had this cool connection, you know, when I saw you playing with Crack the Sky, man, we were just like rocking it. I was like just zeroed in on you, watching you play, and then we just kind of connected after that. It was just really cool how it all happened, man. So welcome to the Front Porch, man.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So I have been studying under Dave for 6 years.
No
man.
way.
6 years, man. So I've been, Dave's my mentor. He teaches me things that maybe I shouldn't be learning because it's making me a little more dangerous on the bass.
Okay, yes, I'm glad you said on the bass, because if you leave it open like that, what the hell is he teaching? You know.
Well, some people would say I'm dangerous in other things too, so. Mainly to myself, though. Okay. You know. Yeah, so I've been studying under Dave for 6 years, and I'll tell you what, leaps and bounds, man, in the way I see things, the way I play things. You know.
Yeah.
So you've taught me so much. So, are you originally from Maryland?
I am. Yeah, I grew up in Harford County, and I lived there until I was 18, and I moved to Boston, went to college up there, and stayed there for about 10 years, and came back here in the mid-90s.
Sweet, man.
Yeah, man.
And then that's where everything just started taking off, right?
Yeah, you know, Boston was a completely different vibe than here. You know, in Boston, it's funny. When I was in high school, I was in multiple bands, right? I go to Boston, and the whole time I'm there, I'm always in one band at a time, just one band. As soon as I get back to Maryland, multiple bands again. So I don't know what it is about this state. You know. It's rife for freelancers. Or
it really is, because, you know, when I first got back into it, I mean, I was always in one band. I was never in multiple bands. I moved to Maryland. Now I'm in multiple bands. It's really weird.
Yeah.
There's some vibe here. Must be the water.
But you know what that tells me? That there are so many good bands that you don't want to say no.
Right.
That's honestly, 100% right. That's where I am. I get an opportunity to play with something and I go, God, this would be awesome. Can I fit this in? And if I go, yeah, I can fit this in, then I say, yeah, let's do it.
That's cool, man.
You just, you don't, it's like you got three different cakes in front of you. You know, which one? How about if I have one of each, man? You know, why not?
Right. So, that's really cool, man. So what inspired you to get into music? You know, a lot of us have different things that kind of trigger that. What was your inspiration?
It was growing up around it. You know, I had older siblings who were playing all this amazing music when I was a kid. And there was a lot of classical music in the house when I was a kid. And I had older siblings who were listening to Beatles and ELP and Yes and Genesis and all this, Elton John, all this great stuff. And my brother was in bands. So there were band people in the house, and there was gear, there were amplifiers and keyboards and guitars in the house as a kid. And so you're just exposed to the coolest group of people. My brother had like these awesome girlfriends, you know, and I was just like, he was my hero. My brother was absolutely my hero. I was like, why wouldn't I want to do this?
Right.
Where's the downside to this, you know?
Right.
And so I just started making music on the instruments that were in the house, and then acquiring my own. And there was never really a choice. It wasn't like I ever said, I think I'm going to pursue music. Music pursued me and grabbed me by the shirt and said, you're coming with me.
That's pretty cool, man. That is cool. Yeah. You know, I think that happens to a lot of us. You know, we're growing up, especially those of us who grew up in the 70s, you know, when the whole music scene was kind of evolving into a little more aggressive styles of music that kind of turned us on, you know. And then the next thing you know, we're like, I want to do that. You know, it kind of just grabbed us and pulled us in. And we saw the cool vibe, you know, with these guys up on stage rocking it out, you know. We're like, I want to be there, man. I want to do that.
And think about it, you know, back then, you know, like I'll just use me as an example. You know, yeah, I was into all the weird progressive rock, but I was also very into Elton John, very into like the pop music of the 70s.
Right.
You know, all those, you know, one-hit wonder band. And the reason we were all into that stuff is because the music was good.
Right.
It was really good music.
Right.
And it was easy. You know, we're all hanging out in the street. We've got our boom boxes. We're skateboarding. And I know you didn't live here, but there was this great station called WKTK, which used to play they would go from Earth, Wind, and Fire to Ted Nugent to Stevie Wonder to Boston to Foreigner. I mean, it was this great melange of everything that was cool in the 70s.
Yeah.
So you got exposed to this stuff, and there was no division, you know. There wasn't, you listen to this, you listen to that. We all just listened to good music.
Right.
You know?
You know, I remember in the 70s, a lot of the songs, they called them crossover songs, you know, where it was a rock song and maybe a country song or a rock song and an R&B. So like Earth, Wind, and Fire was, you know, they were kind of like a lot of R&B style, but they still had the rock stations playing, you know, September and you know, Fantasy and stuff like that, you know, and we were into it, you know. We were like, yeah, that's really cool. Plus they put on a hell of a show, you know. It was just all so new to us, you know, and we'd never seen anything like it, you know. And I think you're right. That did pull us in. So, do you remember the name of your first band?
Oh, sure. Yeah. We were called Arion.
Arion.
A-R-I-O-N. The guitar player came up with it. I don't remember what it meant. It was something, might have been Greek mythology or something.
Right.
But, you know, that's like the perfect, you know, we're Arion. What's your band name? No idea. Couldn't tell you. But it sounds like, you know, it has that that mystical kind of thing, and it wasn't too many syllables. So
that's a funny story. We had some friends that had a band that they started. Our band was called Myth, and it just, you know, hey, Myth, we'll be a myth. And there's really no rhyme or reason. We just thought the word was cool, you know?
Here's what's funny, okay? So remember how, like, with band names, if there was an I in there, you would take it out and replace it with a Y.
Right.
So if the band was called, I don't know, something that has an I in it. So you guys could have gone the opposite way. Myth. No, it's M-I-T-H, dude, not M-Y. Because we rock.
Well, you know, our guitar player, he was such a funny guy. And so when they said, what's the name of your band? And he said, Myth. And I'm like, well, what does it represent? He goes, really nothing. It's just, you know, a guy with a lisp saying Smith.
Myth.
Yeah. Right.
I'm Bill Myth.
Right. So that's how he came
funny.
across. And they just look at him like he had two heads and they'd walk away, you know.
That's
But
awesome.
we did have some guys that came up with the name of a band called Xanthus with the X, you know.
Xanthus.
And it actually means something, you know. It's a
I take
pale
that, like,
shade of yellow or something like that.
I take that for indigestion. Isn't that just Xanthus? Get you past the Xanthus, please. I got a little.
But it actually is the name of a pale shade of yellow.
Wow.
But they didn't know that. They just thought the word was cool.
Yeah.
And they just said Xanthus. You know?
Xanthus.
We're Xanthus.
Yeah,
Okay.
and you have to say it that way. You can't go, oh, hi, we're Xanthus. We're Xanthus.
Right. Yeah, that old metal, grungy way of saying it. So that's cool, man. So what kind of music did that first band play? Do you remember?
It sounded a lot like this guy over here.
Oh, yeah. You know, that's the cool thing about the Front Porch. We get to compete with all kinds of neighborhood sounds. We got a jackhammer off the distance because they're putting fiber optic cables in.
But listen, you could transcribe, you know?
Hey, what key is that?
That's
in?
natural minor.
And this is the stuff me and Dave talk about every other week.
I'll find it. I can't hear it right now.
I didn't quite like the ending, though, the way it kind of just...
Yeah, because his jack came unplugged from his guitar. So. I'm sorry, what was your question?
Just the genre of music you guys were playing. Was it classic rock? Or?
We wrote our own music.
That's sweet.
First band was an original band, and we did a handful of covers. So we were doing, we did Asia, Heat of the Moment. We did some Aldo Nova song. We did, I don't even remember what else. It was mostly originals.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
That's cool. You know, I was going to ask you, if you did any songwriting and original music. And I was pretty sure you did.
Yeah.
Because we've talked about this before. But, and studio work, and that was going to be my next question. You've done studio session work for a number of different people, and we just talked about that with Pete Friedlander last week, how the bass player goes in, he lays down his tracks, and then the engineer's like, yeah, I think I'm going to redo that,
Oh, that's horrible. Did that happen to him?
It happens to a lot of bass players. I've actually seen YouTube videos where the bass player will go in and lay down his tracks, and then as soon as he leaves, the engineer will go in, pick up a bass, and then just play it over again.
Well, I'm not going to say who, but I would. They call it ghost session, or ghost playing, or whatever.
Right.
I did do that for one band, of local bands who their bass player was fine for live, but he wasn't working in the studio.
Right.
And I said, "Can you come in here and do it? Kind of, don't put it on your website that you played on this album or anything like
Right,
that." So
right,
I did
right.
that once.
Yeah. And I can see how that can happen, because before I met you, muting notes, getting ringing strings, I think a lot of guys that are really super formally trained on that or aware of it, and live, you don't pick that up. But in the studio, they're picking everything up, the rasp of your strings.
Oh, yeah.
Even the sound of your finger hitting the string,
Yeah, you're under the microscope.
Yeah,
Totally.
right,
Totally.
right. So you've really got to be on top of your game to really do that. So I really have a lot of respect for guys that do session work, because it does take a really a lot of attention to detail.
It does.
To get that down. Well, that's cool, man. So I know you're formally trained. We talked about you going to college in Boston. It was like the Berkeley School, wasn't it?
Right. Yep.
So tell me a little bit about that. How did that start, and how did you decide what direction you were going to go?
Well, it started before then, actually, because I was, like everybody else, I was taking private lessons as a kid. And in high school, I went to Peabody in Baltimore, which was Peabody Institute. And they had the Peabody Conservatory, which was the college, and they had the Institute for kids who were not ready to go to conservatory yet. So I was in the Institute, and I was taking a full day of classes there every Saturday. I was taking piano, drums, music theory, mallets, which is classical percussion, musicianship. It was a whole day worth of classes.
Wow.
I did that all the way through high school. And then, so I had already known, like once I heard that there was this Berkeley place and that Steve Vai came out of there, and all these guys were coming out of there, I was like, all right, that's for me. Let's do that.
Yeah, that's
so
cool.
So I got up there and quickly found out that everybody on the planet was better than me.
Right.
Everybody.
Right.
They were all. Every single person was better than me. Certainly everybody at that college was better than me.
Right.
And you just have this moment where you go, all right, now what do I do?
Right.
Well, what you do is you sit down and practice,
Right.
It was very intense, but not in a competitive way. It was very, like, the vibe was very cool, very chill, but the intensity was just, you were exposed to amazing music all day long.
Right.
From people that you would see just passing by. And it was so open, too. You'd walk past someone's room and you'd hear them playing something. And it was absolutely acceptable to knock on the door and say, hi, that's really cool what you're playing. Can you show me what you're doing? Sure, come on in.
Wow, that's great.
Grab your bass, grab whatever. Come on in, let's just jam. And hey, why don't we do this next Friday? They had these rooms at the end of the hallway, these little practice rooms.
Right.
They're about the size of a closet, big enough to fit a drum kit and maybe another person. And you could go get one of these rooms and go jam as loud as you want all night long. And it would be just people.
I love that.
You'd be walking, hey, you play bass, right? Yeah, can you come in and do this next? Yeah, sure, let's do it.
That's cool.
It was so open and so cool, and just, it was like the perfect learning environment, as long as you were able to stay focused and not get distracted with things.
Right. And
There were
I know at
plenty
that
of
age,
distractions.
and I know at that age there were buku.
You're in Boston and there's 300 other colleges. 300 colleges times, or divided by how many females, and
and we're at like the peak of our testosterone levels, and we're just and it's hard to stay focused when you're going through that phase of your life. I definitely know that, just personally going through that experience of just trying to say, I gotta stick to the course. And everybody's over here peeing. It's like being pecked to death by a duck, Come on, do this. Come on, do that.
Yeah.
Come on. The temptation is all surrounding you. And to stay focused, it was really hard for me. Plus, I was like ADHD, I was like, okay, hey, okay.
Right.
Hey, there's a squirrel over there. Get a look at that, So it was really difficult for me to stay focused. And so that's really cool. And, these music rooms, I remember in high school we had similar music rooms that we'd go in and jam. And I remember one day we were in there playing guitar. I was playing the bass, and some kid I think he had a snare drum or something like that. And we're in there jamming. And the music teacher stuck his head in the door and he said, "Gentlemen, decibels do not make music," because we were so loud, it was just crazy. But I mean, that's the thing. That's what we thought it was all about, was turn it up as loud as you can and just start cutting loose, you know? And that was an eye opener. Decibels do not make music, and that stuck with me.
I have a sign in my studio that says, it's like this vintage 50s looking sign. It's got like some dude in like a 50s suit, and it says, better musicianship through louder amplifiers.
Right.
I was like, I gotta have that.
Right. It's like, beer makes guys attractive since it was invented or something like that, since the 1800s or something like that. Yeah, I totally get that. So what other instruments do you play besides the bass? And I know you play the piano, drums.
Yep.
Anything else?
Those are the ones that I play well.
Right.
I play guitar well enough to write my own songs. And I do that. Mandolin, I play a decent amount of mandolin, lap steel.
That's cool.
What else? Theremin. I love keyboards. I've got a whole bunch of synths.
You have a theremin?
I have a theremin. Yeah.
That's cool, man.
I brought it out. I used to bring it out for in the middle of Working Man instead of doing. We have this big drawn out thing that Sam and I kind of created, and there used to be a bass solo, and because I get very bored bass soloing wise, I'm not a bass soloist, and it just bores me. So I was like, theremin. Now that'll be fun. So I brought the theremin out. First time I ever did it was live at Pier 6 in front of how many thousand people.
That's so cool.
And I was like, let's just do this. And it worked out great. It was awesome. That theremin solo.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Anybody that doesn't know what a theremin is, if you ever see the old Star Trek, or the 60s Star Trek, when they started it out, it sounds almost like a woman singing, but it's not. It's a theremin. It's making that really weird space.
Well, the thing to mention is that it's the only that I'm aware of touch-free instrument.
Right.
Your hands don't touch the instrument at all. You got these two antennae, and one of them is for volume, and the other one is for pitch.
Right.
And you kind of manipulate it that way.
Yeah, that magnetic wavelength that's around it, you're altering the frequency when your hand gets closer or further away from it, and so you can change the pitch by moving your hand, and it's really cool. And it's an old instrument. They invented it like in the 20s or 30s?
20s, yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. The theremin. So you are the first guy I've ever talked to that plays the theremin. Other than Sheldon Cooper on...
Oh, right.
Right. That's really cool, man. So we talked about your songwriting and recording session work. What performance or performers influenced you? See, there's the airplanes I was talking about.
Yeah,
we're getting strafed, man.
It's like
happens all the time.
What's the Zeppelin song where you hear the plane go by? Something with this graffiti. Yeah. But I'm sorry, you were saying?
Influences. That got you maybe getting into the bass and digging in a little bit deeper.
So it started. The first bass player I noticed was McCartney on the Beatles albums when I was a kid, because the parts were so melodic. And so when it starts there, and then Chris Squire from Yes, also a very melodic player. Those are the first two bass players I noticed. So then, as I started to get more, so now we're talking age maybe 4 or 5 years old, and I started to pick out the bass in other songs, and why isn't the bass moving as much in these songs as it does on Beatles albums and Yes albums? And my brother would explain it to me, and so again, John Entwistle, and you had all these amazing bass players who were being very melodic, and the bass was a really dominant part of the song, So those were the guys who got me into that. But before I even knew I wanted to be a bass player, I thought I wanted to be a drummer and a keyboard player. So that's what I was doing. Bass was like my for fun instrument. I started that when I was like 14 maybe.
Right.
But by that point I was already playing drums and keys. And that's what I thought I was going to be. I thought it was heading that way.
Right.
And it didn't work out that way. So
I know, isn't that strange?
Bass just kind of grabbed me and said, "You're doing this."
It's really weird how that happens. I've told people I started playing the trumpet. And I really liked playing the trumpet. It was a lot of fun. And I was actually in a band that had a horn section. That was one of the first bands I was in. It was called Expressway. And I was in there with a sax player and a trombone player. We're doing a lot of Chicago style music. And I was playing trumpet. That's actually back in the days when I could read music notation and had a little bit of theory understanding, But then my dad got me a guitar, and I started playing it. And I was playing the bass parts on the guitar.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
On the A and E string, the upper strings of the guitar. And he says, no, that's not how you play the guitar. You're playing the other part of the song. You didn't really identify it as the bass part.
Right.
But I remember Smoke on the Water by Deep Purple. Everybody wanted to play that because it was just a cool riff, you know. And I was playing the bass part of that song on the guitar, picking it, of course, with a pick. And he says, no, that's not chords. That's you're playing the other part of the song. And then I said, yeah, it's the bass part. And my music teacher in junior high school had a Fender P bass just in a cupboard, not even being played. And I picked it up one day, just started noodling around with it, and she goes, do you want to play that? I'm like, yeah. Can I plug it in? And she let me plug it in. The very first song I learned on the bass, and this is so crazy, was a song by Evelyn Champagne King called Shame.
Oh, wow.
And that was a really cool bass line. Ding, 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 ding. You know, it was just a really cool driving bass line.
Neat.
And it stuck with me, you know? And then the fat was in the fire, just like you said, you know, that's all you wanted to do. But I was left-handed, and Dad wanted the left-handed bass, but I would play right-handed.
Uh-huh.
And it's so funny. Dave O'Connell is a left-handed bassist. He goes, how do you clap? And I was like, he goes, you should be plucking with this hand. I'm like, doesn't work that way, Dave. It's whatever's comfortable to me.
Yeah.
You know? So he says, well, your dominant hand is definitely your left hand. You should be plucking with that hand. And I'm like, doesn't work that way for me.
It doesn't. I'm left-hand dominant also when I play righty.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah, but when I play drums, though, so, you know, I don't do this. So hi-hat plays with this, ride cymbal plays with this. So I go from this to this. Because as a kid, I was like, what is this?
Right.
That's cluttered. It's like,
right.
Like, play this one with this hand, and play this one with this hand, and everybody's, you know. So that's what I started doing. It just makes sense.
Yeah. And I'm taking drum lessons, and I'm doing the same thing. You know, I can do the cross or open because I'm left-handed.
Right.
So, and John Boogie says, man, that's a talent. Because a lot of guys can't do that. They can't do the open and the close.
Yeah.
You know, alternate back and forth. And it gives you more flexibility to reaching that ride cymbal and still be able to hit the snare with the left hand, you know. And then back over on the hi-hat and hitting the snare with the right, you know.
Yep.
And then locking in the right with the right foot, you know, going back and forth. That's a little bit of a challenge.
Can be.
But I'll tell you what, it's helping me become a better bass player.
Of course.
Not a better drummer. Well, that's really cool. So you're saying the Entwistle, some of the Chris Squire, they were pretty much influences that pulled you in. Anybody right now that's kind of inspiring you?
Everybody's inspiring. All you have to do is turn on Facebook or YouTube, and you know, I get inundated with people sending me things. Dave, check this out. Check this out. Check this out.
Right.
And it's great. I never get to. I only get to a third of it, but there's a million. Just everybody. It's like going to Berkeley, and everybody's awesome.
Right.
That's what it's like now.
Right.
Everybody's awesome, and except they're 9 years old now, and they're awesome.
Yeah.
And,
well, you know, I told Chris Murray, I said, if we would have had YouTube when we were kids,
oh jeez,
think of where we'd be now.
Yeah. Different game entirely.
Yeah, because we have those resources to see what people are doing, how they're doing it.
Yep.
And they're not afraid to share.
But here's one thing I will say. I will say that for people of our generation who had to learn songs the hard way, like picking up the needle and dropping it on the album, forget about cassettes. We're not even going to talk about cassettes, okay? So you get okay, over and over and over, and right. Well, what that did was that made our ears really strong, really strong. Because listen, if everything that we learned came from someone going, put this finger at this fret and all that, and some of that's beneficial, I get it,
right.
But you'd never learn, your ear would never develop, and you wouldn't learn what differentiates the scales and you know, major from minor and all that. And we learned that because we had to. You pick up sounds and go, what's the connective tissue here between this Queen song and this Bad Company song, okay? Well, they both are in this key for one thing, and they both have a minor 7 chord or something like that. But you pick that stuff up. And I'm not saying that the kids today aren't, because obviously many kids are very theory savvy and all that, and they're getting great ears. But I don't know. I feel like we had an advantage because we had to work for it a little bit. So
Do you remember when we were playing with records, how we had to tune the bass to the record because the turntable wasn't spinning at the right speed and for the exact pitch?
And let's, and then what about the songs that for whatever reason didn't get recorded at the right speed? Maybe the tape machine was off, or they had to tune their instruments to the piano. The piano's out of tune. They're not going to bring in someone to retune the piano.
Right.
Everybody had to tune to the E on that piano. So you go to play it, and why is your note between E and E flat?
Right. So. Or the frequencies, like instead of 440, it's in 432 or something like that.
I did an album that way. A guy in Australia hired me to play on his album, and he said I tuned to 432. 432 is there's like this cosmic thing with it. It has to do with how the Earth vibrates. There's like this whole thing to it. And he's like, that's my tuning. So he said, you got to calibrate all your guitars for 432 to do this record. And I did, and you know what? You can hear a difference.
I know you can.
Absolutely, and you can feel a difference.
Dawkins does that. They're 432 because I was trying to learn a Dawkins song, and I was like, why can't I? It sounds like the pitch is off, and then I tuned to 432. Boom, it's right on, man.
Wow.
Yeah, and a lot of the bands from the late 70s, early 80s. 432.
Yeah,
it's really weird. They went through that, and then the detune thing down to the, take it down a half
L.
step.
Down to L flat.
Take it down. Yeah, we're definitely competing with a lot of noise today, Dave.
That's all right. I'm no stranger to noise. So
yeah,
I know how to make noise.
That's cool. All right, so highs and lows, man. I know, as musicians, when we go out to perform, we definitely experience a lot of highs, and get out there. But, there are those times where we're going through something in our life, get up on stage, you're going through a little bit of a stressful time in your life. How do you work around that, man?
I wish I had more insight on this because I don't retain any of the negatives.
That's good.
If there was a bad gig or a bad time in my life or a bad whatever, listen, the best I can tell you is that when I was going through my divorce in 2016, there were some moments where I got a little melancholy.
Right.
But by the next gig, you just move past it. And now I'm in a great space, and I couldn't tell you. Like I literally can't. I know that there have been, because we're humans. Of course, there's a bad something that happens.
Right.
But I can't tell you what I can't tell you what it was. It never took up residence in my head.
That's freaking awesome. And that's one of the things you taught me early on too. Is why are we going back to something that's not good?
Yeah.
We should just put that behind us and forget about it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And that's a good life lesson. I think, is why are we readdressing something that wasn't good? You learn from it, now you move forward and you just carry on. And that reinforced it with me big time. When I first started studying with him, I was always said, I got to show him how I did it wrong. And he's like, why are you doing that?
Right.
Let's just leave that in the trash can where it belongs and move on to doing it right.
But and listen, I think I told you, you're far from the only person who does that.
Right.
It's almost like a constant thing.
It's human nature.
Yeah. Let me show you how I did this wrong.
Right. It's human nature. I think we have to seek validation, and so what we say is, well, yeah, look how I did it wrong, and now look how I do it good. So we're like looking for some form of validation. And I really think that the way you presented it to me was freaking awesome, because it kept me looking forward and not looking back. We left all the garbage where it belonged, behind me. And I think that's really good. And in life, I think that's really good. Over the past 10 years, since I had back surgery and had to relearn how to walk again, that changed my whole perspective. And just look forward, keep pressing along, and never my wildest dreams did I think I'd ever do this at my age.
Yeah.
Isn't that cool? And it's just really cool.
Yeah, age means nothing.
Weird moments on stage, man. I know we all have them. I've had a couple of weird things happen. I don't even play as much as Dave, and I've had weird things happen to me.
And you're probably going to remember more than I do, because here's the best I can tell you. I remember one time, This is back about 1998, 99. There used to be a club called Daytona's, which was like the big kind of rock club down here. And I was playing with a band, and so this was the 90s. So I was dressed in 90s attire, which was kind of like that whole new metal sort of thing, you know,
right.
Everybody was wearing like Adidas, this and that. So I was wearing these pants that had these little snaps, like boom, 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 all the way down like this, right?
Yeah.
And my guitar player, who was this wild Texan dude, he was always trying to make everything, and God bless him. And I could see him looking at my pants, going, "Nah, we're gonna do something with that, right?" So he came over. There was I forget what song, something very technical that took a lot of concentration. And as he's playing, he would strum a chord and go whack and yank the snaps open. And I'm fury,
and he's working.
He'd do it again, bang, whack, and finally he got it to all the way here. And then something happened, and floop, he pantsed me. The pants just down, right? So
that's crazy.
Thankfully, I was playing my Black Thunderbird, which is a large body guitar, and so there I am. And it was a long song, whatever it was. There was easily another 2-3 minutes, and it wasn't like something with a lot of open strings that I can just yank my pants up. And they're all so. So I finished out the rest of the song with my pants at my knees. Jill DeVille, who is a local luminary, she came up and she snapped a picture of it, of course. So that was funny, you know. God, I remember one time doing a gig in Myrtle Beach, and it was St. Paddy's Day. And as we're playing, we hear this other music happening, and we're like, "Where's that coming from?" Well, some like Scottish bagpiper band with a bunch of bagpipes and flutes and drums.
Right.
They walk into the venue playing this like thing, and it was like this drone, you know, with this real military-ish kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so they're playing, and they're walking all around the club, and so we stopped playing because we're like, what the heck is it?
Right.
But then I was like, no. They interrupted our show. I'm going to interrupt their show. So it was in C. So I told the guitar player C, and we just started playing in beat with them. And for, I don't know, 3-4 minutes, as long as they took them to walk throughout the venue and then right back out the door. And so we played with the Scottish band.
That is so cool.
That was fun. That was really, really
That is really cool.
Yeah,
you just joined in instead of let them defeat you. You know? That's really cool.
Yeah.
And it probably, you know, people probably totally got into that too. You know, they're like, hey, the band's like playing along with the pipers.
Yeah,
you know?
they worked this out. They probably hired.
Oh yeah. They well, you know, there are probably suspicious minds that said, oh, you know, they probably coordinated that effort,
Right.
you know, and then they're thinking, how can I coordinate that effort, you know?
Yeah.
That's really cool. Well, being an Irishman, I really love the pipes, and so when I hear the pipes, I just get chills, you know.
Yeah.
It just Bon Scott, man, look at that guy.
Yep. I think Nazareth had some in one of their songs as well.
And you know, Kiff Brewer, man, from the Ravens,
Yeah.
man, he started a band called Barley Juice.
Yeah.
And he'd get up there on the pipes and just start rocking it out. And it's like, oh, that's so cool, you know?
Mhm.
And I love. So what are your current bands? I know you're in HFS,
Right.
the Dave DeMarco Band, Crack the Sky. Anything else?
I have a Tom Petty tribute band called Coat Junction.
That's right, Petticoat Junction.
And so I've got 2 new projects that are starting. One of them is going to be playing some very challenging music. That's all I'm going to say about it for now.
Okay.
And we hope to bring that out by the end of the year.
Sweet.
And the other band is not even going to debut until well into next year. It's an 8-piece band that's going to be doing some pretty neat stuff. So, always something. Always something.
See, my mind's already reeling on when you said 8 pieces. I'm thinking, you know, super tones, you know,
Yeah.
the old ska music, you know, a little bit of the horn.
No horns. For 8 pieces, no horns.
Oh, wow. Okay, I'm going in the total wrong direction.
Yeah,
See, I'm going to stop guessing right now because I'll probably never get it. So I know you got a doubleheader coming up.
Saturday, yeah.
Saturday,
yeah. Playing the it's called Hampstead Day. Town of Hampstead. They have like a heritage day, and it's just my guitar player Sam and I. We do an acoustic duo thing. We did it last year.
Right.
We just set up. People were in the street eating, hot dogs and walking around and buying stuff from vendors, and we're background music.
That's cool.
So I do that. Let's say from 11 to 2 or something, and then HFS is playing at McAvoy's in Parkville.
Right. HFS. What style of music? 90s.
So it's, if you remember, I don't know if you were living here then, but we used to have a radio station called WHFS 99.1. It was a big alternative rock station. So they came around and I became aware of them in the 80s, and they were playing everything. Like, they did play like some ska, but they would play Elvis Costello. They would play new wave, synth pop. They play King Crimson. They play Talking Heads, things like that.
Right.
And then it sort of evolved as alternative music evolved, and U2 and then it started getting into some of the heavier bands, Rage Against the Machine, all that. So we covered the entire spectrum of what HFS used to do.
Oh,
so
that's
it's
cool.
everything from we do Gary Newman, and we do like pop songs like Mexican Radio.
Oh, that's cool, man.
All the way to like Tool and Muse and some of the heavier.
Well, I was wondering what HFS stood for. See, now there's a good backstory right there, man.
Well,
WHFS.
When we were putting the band together, and we realized people were going to ask what it stands for, and we came up with a list of about 20 things that HFS stands for. One of which being Hot Fudge Sundae.
Nice. I like that, man.
So,
who doesn't like a hot fudge sundae?
Yeah,
right?
high frequency sonics or something. We had like a whole. I'm going to make a T-shirt with all the different ones.
Oh, that's really cool.
But no, it's all about the radio station and that music, and it's neat to. And I love classic rock, and I have a classic rock band, obviously. But I like playing heavy, sort of energetic music that stays away from classic rock,
right?
Because that stuff lives in other places too.
Yeah.
You can play that. You can find that in different places. So, so I like that. I like the diversity of that.
Yeah, and I've seen some of your videos, and you guys really play a lot of fun stuff. Where people can get up and just kind of jump up and down and move to it.
Yeah,
that's really cool. It's really good vibe. So social media. Let's say somebody wants to take lessons from you. What website would we find you at?
That would be beyondbasslessons.com.
Beyond Bass Lessons. All right.
Beyondbasslessons.com.
All right. And then on social media, we just look for your bands, HFS.
Yeah, you can look for that. You can start with me. You can just type in Dave DeMarco, and then, I've got them all listed there. But you can go to the bands if you're a big Tom Petty fan. It's Coat Junction. Crack the Sky, obviously, is out there and about doing them. We have a new album, by the way, Crack the Sky fans. We have a new album called From the Wood. It's our first all-acoustic album. It comes out June 9th. We're taking pre-orders now, or you can buy them at our show.
Sweet.
What else? Yeah.
All right, and we'll put links in the YouTube channel on the More. Just click on More down there, and we'll put links in there. You can go see all this Dave DeMarco goodness, man. And I'll tell you what, man, it's really worth it. The bands are so top notch and high caliber. I love Crack the Sky. I really was never a prog rock fan until I saw these guys, and I actually have a couple of favorite songs. From the Greenhouse is actually my most favorite song by them.
That's cool.
That's why I even learned how to play the bass line, because I just really love the vibe of that whole song.
Sure.
And then what's that? Surf City.
Yeah, Surf City.
Surf City. That's probably one of their most popular ones. Anyways.
Yeah.
But just a couple of good go-tos. And then I'm digging deeper into it a little bit right now. Mark Romero is really kind of pushing me into getting into it. Mark Romero is actually the fan club. He runs the fan club side for Crack the Sky. So check that out as well. We'll put links on that as well to get you into the Crack the Sky fan club. You can start following Crack the Sky and see what Dave's up to, man. All right, Dave, it's been awesome talking to you today.
Mazel
tov. And you guys have a great weekend. And go to the shows. Check it out. Razzle Report, man.
Yeah, he's been good. He's been helping us out, for sure.
Yeah, the Razzle Report. Check the Razzle Report out. Check out a lot of bands. It's flourishing again. Isn't it awesome? Starting to flourish again. So get out there, check out the Razzle Report, hit the shows, support your local live music. Check out Crack the Sky, man. Got that new album coming out. You guys have a great weekend. Thanks again, Dave.
Got it, brother.